around a little bit on the guitar. Oh, okay, there we go. We're just gonna keep jamming, messing around a little bit, but feel free to stick around and enjoy. Thank you.
That caught me off guard. That's a great sound.
Pretty sure these mics work. I think yours does. I don't know if there's an off switch on it, maybe. It didn't seem like it was picking. Oh, yeah, it's on. I can hear it.
Oh. Nope. Oh.
It's on.
Couple Michigan opes.
Oh,
Nope.
yeah, we oped earlier in the kitchen.
Simultaneously, I might add.
Yeah. Excuse me. Right into the microphone. Yeah, it's kind of an off day. My work schedule kind of got swung earlier, and I didn't get enough sleep to compensate, so I'm really tired.
Was what we just did, like, do we record that?
Halfway. It's recorded into the stream.
Oh, beautiful. That's good.
At least we got that. Now,
I'll have to listen back through and figure
yeah,
it out.
we'll have to
That's all.
listen back through the stream. I'm in the need for some cables, so I'm going to be ordering some shortly, but I'm almost completely set up the way I want to in here in terms of like audio routing and all that. So hopefully in the next few weeks I'll have that all ironed out. I found the right signal chain for the effects send, so we have a delay on there. Flashback X4. I'm gonna run it in stereo eventually. There's some issues with the Mackie. I'm gonna have to clean that thing out. I realized it's gonna take me probably 6 to 8 hours, and also I've been begrudgingly trying. Like, I was gonna wait till after Thanksgiving. You know, I don't want to have a big mess here. We're having company.
Yeah, you should wait.
I don't want to be rushed to finish it either. I want to, even if it takes longer, I'll take as long as it takes. But that thing's gonna be pristine.
It's kind of working right now.
There's-
I feel like, yeah, until you're ready to have it be gone for a little while.
Yeah, so we'll probably go back to the old setup for a little while, which involves using the interfaces as kind of some mixes of
You did
everything.
give me that other one though, so maybe that'll play in.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We have options. It's not really that big of a deal. But yeah, it's all about maintaining gear. And old boards. This one was made a couple years after I was born. I'd put it like 28 years old. So it's an oldie, all analog. But that's what is part of the charm. We can clip the channels, the preamps or whatever you call those. Get a nice little tape or an old school analog saturation that's tasteful. Yeah, like I really like the way. Also, whatever's being sent to the flashback and the oceans over here in our effects send, that's also your clean signal too, which is kind of unique to where your signal chain does bypass the Voyager, giving a little distortion there for John's guitar. We have that set up in a way where on the Mackie, you can kind of see it if you look in like this area, like over my hand. My hand's on it right there. That's a Voyager, and then over on the other side, that's a chorus, Boss Chorus Wazacraft remake, and we can send signal there. In fact, I'm about to send a little signal there for my guitar because it sounds really cool. that chorus you're hearing in the guitar there, that's all post reverb, but also blended in with the original signal. So it's kind of like splitting the signal to do like reverb on the chorus, and then you can blend it with the clean. Which the slow already kind of does something like that, but it's just cool to have another layer of modulation on top of it. I think it sounds really lush and beautiful, and I'm intentionally overdoing it just to give it a weird warp sound.
Plus, I like mod after wet effects. In fact, before you took that chorus back, it was on the end of the end of my board at Vibe Unit after everything, after the Hall of Fame, after
Yeah.
all wet effects. Literally just for the like, it was subtle too. I don't know if you saw what the knobs were at when you pulled
Very
it off
low.
there, but like
Yeah,
low.
I saw.
And the what does it have, like a rate, right?
Yeah.
So I think it was like rate all the way down, like to be like the longest LFO it could be, and then like depth to where you could just barely tell it was there.
Yeah, it was like, I remember you saying you just want to thicken it up a bit, like thickened up the tone
I
because
just wanted to move around just enough that,
Yeah.
like kind of like you were saying about being able to randomize in the poly end. It really is like that. It's just another way for you to just like not have to hear the same thing, just looped and looped and looped and looped. It just adds a little bit of
just that little bit of mod.
a little bit of flavor.
It does. It flavors it nicely. Yeah, I like that song we played though. That was really pretty.
I don't know. I kind of want like a micro pog or something, kind of. After hearing Zach's tones on Sunday, like dude, that octave thing that he was using to like double
Yeah.
his instrument but down a pitch
Yeah.
was crazy, dude.
Yeah, that sounded
It
really
almost
cool.
like made it sound like a, I'm not gonna say a 12 string because it isn't like that, but I don't know, dude. Just not it's not the same thing you'd hear all the time if you just pick up a guitar, you know. I like that. And the same thing with the thing, I don't know if you showed it off to anywhere or whatever, but the thing you were showing me when I got here that you had done, it's like the same thing with that. You know, that just jumps out at me too. Talking about the action, I'm just talking about the intonation. What is that, the D string? That's sharp for sure. Is it in tune by itself? That's the A string.
I probably went off just a minute ago. very close, but it's probably not intonated correctly.
Because my point is like just.
I can hear that it's off. And that's what Zach is going to help me with. So it's like the movement starts.
Wow, yeah,
It's such a. It's such a
that have that same note in the root though too.
But just to press this note while muting the other two that are exposed.
Yep. That's a great shape.
I'm in love with the chorus sound. I think it's probably because I'm into Junos. And I like vibrato. I like things coming in and out of pitch. I just, for some reason, I've always been in love with that sound.
Yeah. Yeah, like tape style modulation is probably my favorite of all of the different flavors, you know? Because it's just, like you said, it's inconsistent, and that's like what's good about it.
Exactly. Like, the other thing. The other thing I like about it, oh yeah.
Could have just looked where I was going.
The other thing I like about that type of modulation is just like it feels more for some reason it feels more vintagey to me, and again that falls in with the tape thing, but it kind of puts me in a more like serene state. Just here if
I mean, it is, if you think about it though, like it is super nostalgic.
yeah. Yeah. Like well, if you think like back to tape, right?
I mean, I don't know about like. I'm curious. Like, did you have like tapes when you were a kid? Like, 'cause when
Mhm.
I grew up, like tape was the primary medium still.
Yeah.
CDs kind of became something.
Like 2000ish.
Yeah, like but like people didn't start walking around with like portable Discmans and shit like really commonly until I mean I was in somewhere in middle school probably by that point.
Yeah, I remember it
But
being
like
like
tape
early
players were
2000s.
common. Like everybody had a tape player.
Yeah, I was a tape player. I mean I did that.
So I'm saying like consciously or not, like you kind of like internalize I don't
Yeah.
know, like what that sound. And so when other things have that sound, it just like I don't know. There's probably nothing you can do about it. It just takes you there.
Yeah,
Because
it
when you
does.
figure even like, and this is an interesting thing to think about. Like think about the mediums. Like this is a big one. For a long time before the compact disc became super common, I mean, figure what were radio stations playing? Tapes.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I didn't
So
know that.
so granted, like a radio station's gonna have like probably a better quality tape player than like the average person would in their house, but
Yeah.
like tape still degrades and like rollers can be inconsistent and motors can wear out and like not every station has a gigantic maintenance budget and like so the sounds of even like a we'll just say a not perfectly maintained machine, which is the kind of sound we like there was a time when that's what you'd hear on the radio too.
That must be what it is. I used to find it easy to fall asleep to the radio when I was younger because of maybe probably that.
I'd believe.
Like the inconsistency, and then also like you couldn't exactly get the right channel all the time, so like there's a little bit of feedback in there, a little static.
Yep. Yeah, I guess radio's like been around and still is around. But like my point is I don't think I'm trying to think how long it's been. I mean, you figure in the early days of radio, like many other things, like they didn't have like tape didn't even exist. Like radio existed before tape did. So it's like there was a time when if you were gonna have music on the radio, you'd have to have uh like a band or an orchestra like in the studio,
That's so
you know?
weird. Yeah, it's
And
crazy.
like now nothing's that way, so you can pretty much imagine anything you hear on the radio either came like it's being played off of something digital, probably at this point.
Yeah. And everything's so like regulated too.
Yeah.
So it all sounds the same.
Yep. But there, yeah, I have very fond memories of listening to like old, like especially around here. You figure like I don't know much, and to be honest with you, about the local radio stations around here. But the point is, like, I mean, I grew up listening to the stations that were around here, and like, I mean, I saw what AM 1060 looked like when I was a kid, and it's like that was not a high class, high dollar operation. That was a radio station that was hanging on for dear life.
Yeah.
Because it cost so much to run one, and there just wasn't money in it. So eventually, and they got bought up by one of the big radio conglomerates, eventually, which that's what happened to all of them. But it's just really interesting because, like, what just everything I heard was probably influenced by all of those things. And like I said, you wouldn't even know it. Like, even the music you're hearing in a store or anything like that, like, it came off of analog stuff.
That's pretty amazing.
So we're just
I never
really,
considered
really
any
used
of
to the
that.
sound of analog. I feel like that's why. I don't know. I don't know what like what it would be for like anybody who has come up since that's kind of fallen away. Maybe there is no nostalgia in any of it, which is honestly cool because then you don't ever feel like you're missing something. Like you can just be happy with whatever the creative thing was.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's an interesting thing to think about.
There's a large community of people who are rediscovering tape. I mean, pedals are being modeled after tape. People are breaking down cassettes and making loops and stuff. I think it's really neat just to see what people are doing there. I like the idea that you can never hear the same thing twice in the same way. You know, every time you played a tape, it'd get a little more worn out, subtly
Yet
probably,
it does
but
have like it's like I don't know how to say it. It's like characteristically inconsistent though. You know what I mean? Like like the inconsistency is gonna fall kind of within a certain range, and it's
yeah.
gonna do this. But like, it's like all the possible things that are going on with it are all attached to some like LFO that you don't get to see kind of thing
Yeah.
almost. And that's like the secret variable of like how broke is any of the pieces or wore out.
It's
And that's
interesting.
cool.
Yeah, it makes you wonder. Makes you think a lot. I like that.
Because I really do like that sound myself. And I'm assuming it's just because I heard so much of it and so much formative stuff that happened where I like came to enjoy and like certain music. Like tape was involved in that.
That whole lo-fi movement that happened in the last 5 or 6 years, they all like are emulating tape and they're trying to like replicate some of that warm inconsistency, but you're still like solidifying it. Like it's not like I don't know, maybe they do this, but one thing that would be really cool if like that station that you can like find on YouTube, if they just start playing that through something like a J37 or something for the stream, like they like played the sounds through that, then there is this intrinsic inconsistency that every time a song comes on, it's like inconsistent. That'd be kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe they do that. I don't think so. I think it's all baked in, but
Yeah, but honestly, like you make a good point. Like that'd be a cool thing. Yeah, like you just slap a tape plug in at the end of your
yeah.
chain before it goes to air or whatever. Like why not?
Yeah.
Like really?
Yeah, exactly.
Just subtle
Just
tape
little
color.
thing. Yeah, just a little bit.
That's funny.
Like I mean, if you're trying, I mean that's what they're trying to do, right? They're trying to emulate that warmness, that feel, but it's like, well, it's all baked in. So eventually that just becomes the consistency. Like I guess like you'd have to listen to it a lot, but like if you added that extra element there, and maybe this is a tape snob thing to say, but I mean it just sounds like a cool idea to me.
Yeah, I'm into it. Is that the same like effect setup you had for the thing you recorded?
A
or
little
close to it?
No, because I didn't have the chorus, but the only thing that would have to
Oh,
change.
that was before you had the chorus, huh?
Yeah. The thing that was causing the modulation in that was the slow. But the
is
only
that a chorus thing or just like a mod on the? Like
I believe it is like a vibrato of some kind. So in some matter of speaking, yeah. I mean, it is this. That is what it's doing.
And it is on right now.
It is on. We're running through 2 layers of some kind of vibrato at the moment. I'm gonna make it all wet here and see what happens. You may hear my dog. There happens to be someone walking by at this moment. This is what I mean when I say mall music, though. Like, if you're in a mall and you're, like, in just, like, the back part of the mall where the security officer hangs out, and you're, like...
It's like super low pass because the speakers are just dog shit and hung from the ceiling like, 40 feet above you or whatever, you know what I mean? So it's like you can't really hear, like...
Yeah.
Any definition. You just hear the low drone tones and like maybe a touch of whatever the vocal is, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing I remember about malls and the music playing is sometimes some systems were kind of like they didn't have a large like their limiter or whatever they had on that, because there's probably so many speakers they probably didn't want to blow any of them up or whatever. I don't know why they did this, but there's a limiter. So I'm guessing because when something heavy would hit, the sound would get sucked out. Like you'd hear, it kind of reminded me of like when you're on a like a phone, and like they put you on hold and they play that shitty music, and like when it's a really heavy part, it just can't do it, and it just completely cuts out. 'Cause it just hit it, whatever is like the noise gate or whatever it is that.
To be honest with you, it could be, my guess on that is usually those kind of systems, they use what they call 70-volt distribution, which is where you have like a power amp somewhere. And the reason they do this is so you can use smaller cables. 'Cause like you've seen like speaker cables like quite a bit thicker than like say instrument cable.
Yeah.
Well, if you want to run say like a bunch of speakers in a mall, you run 70-volt line. So it's a higher voltage, so you need smaller wire, and you run it to all the places you want speaker. You can just run it in like a line or a loop or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's driven at high voltage, and then everywhere you put a speaker, there's a transformer, and sometimes there's an autoformer with like, maybe a 2 or 3 click thing. Or if it's like those old school like round speakers, it'd be like mounted in drop ceiling.
Yeah.
A lot of times that like nub that sticks out in the middle is actually like the tap for deciding how loud that particular speaker is.
Oh, wow.
So you drop. My point is the amp is just quote on, and then you set how loud you want each speaker to be, either by a control or by what type of transformers on it. That's what sets the volume.
That's fascinating.
So yeah, if my point is, since all those amps like don't have any controls, people would just hook whatever, like the output of a radio or whatever they had around that could like provide music or any kind of audio. And they don't know, it's all analog stuff. No one's gain staging anything. They just turn it up, so they're like, "Oh, yeah, we can hear that. Oh, put it up a little louder. Put it up a little louder." So what happens? Yeah. What happens if the installer sets all the stuff to like whatever volume they think is acceptable or whatever the customer asked for, and then later on someone's like, "You know what? What would make this place really pop is if we had the music just cranking a little bit more." And so over time, they just keep turning it up a little louder.
Yeah.
And then eventually, what you're talking about is we ran out of headroom. So when something loud happens, everything just has to like become that level.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I just remember.
And you're right. It's even worse the more things you have hung off of that line. The more speaker there are. Like when something heavy hits, they all just sag the line down.
It's so good.
That's funny. I always weirdly even enjoyed the systems that were a little noisy, where the gain stage was done badly but the opposite direction, where whatever they were running into the 70-volt amp wasn't loud enough, so there was like maybe even a little noise being put into the system, and sometimes you could even hear a little bit of 60 hertz buzz in it. I don't know. Again, it's just all stuff that reminded you that like signals were going all the way through to the point where you were hearing them, like actual analog signals. There's an interesting set of videos on YouTube as well that I've watched by a guy who used to spend a lot of time playing around with the old phone system, like the old phone network. And he talks about that too. And I remember a little bit of it. I'm not as old as he was, so I wasn't around to see like the early days of it. But some of the, like, think about this, like the sounds of like having to dial up to the internet.
Yeah.
Like you probably had dial up at some point.
Oh yeah.
Right? Yeah. So like you and I know what that sound is.
Oh yeah.
But like, somebody born today that has no cultural or personal reference whatsoever. So the sounds of certain old analog things they're literally just not familiar to people at all.
Well, I can say this, and I don't know if they're people our age, but remember how I talk about being interested in hyperpop? That sound is being sampled, which is really interesting. Like people are using that in their music and stuff. And so like I have a feeling that the way that is being preserved at least in that medium, is they're using that stuff, and people are like, what is that glitchy weird sound? And they go research it, and they're like, oh, that's what it used to sound like to connect to the internet. And it's kind of cool too, like even though I think most
A
hyperpop sounds
fax. What the fuck is a fax?
the
What even is a fax?
the thing that I find interesting about like things like that, like where you retain something in history, it's just kind of interesting how I don't think most hyperpop sounds really good, but it does definitely sound like this generation's rebellious music because it's like a little antisocial. It's like a little strange. It takes a lot of cues from like early 2000s punk, but only like turned up, like the BPMs turned up too high, and like also kind of reflects our like inability to pay attention because it's like the parts will change so frequently. I think it's like eh, as odd as this might seem, I think it's like a, how do you say it, a satire of our current American culture. I really do.
Interesting.
Like made into music. That's why I find so fascinating about it. And this is just, I don't know if anyone shares this opinion with me, but I find like that's what I've been listening to it all summer until this now in the fall, and I'll listen to like they'll update the popular playlist, and it gets updated a lot.
So
And
there's a lot of people doing it then. I mean, there's quite a few then artists that are
yeah, a lot. Like it's the hot new thing. Now, it breaks all the conventional rules. A lot of the things that we kind of rely on, like don't oversaturate the, or don't overdo the signal going into the audio interface. Like they'll like sample little parts of that. Like it just sounds like shit. And you're like, well, if you look at it in terms of like what is it representing? You know, what are they trying to accomplish with this? What are they trying to say? It's in some of the more deeper songs, like the songs that actually have like thought behind it, I think. I feel like this is a hot take, but it's just like it's just a matter of, I get that, just like in my exploration, I keep thinking that it reminds me a lot of just our need for constant stimulus, our need for um like things need to be quick and fast and like and obnoxious, and like to get attention you have to be like this. And it also kind of, a lot of those songs end up on TikTok because those videos are, you know, however long they can be, as short as 10 seconds, and that's all you're watching, and they have to catch your attention right away. So it kind of reminds me of Skrillex in a way, like some of it, where it's like obnoxious in some points. Like it's like, ugh, what were they trying to do there? Well, they take some cues from, what is that genre? What was that genre? Dubstep. They take some cues from that, but like faster, or like they'll take an auto tune and they'll just exploit the hell out of it.
right.
Just everything's fake, everything's fast, everything's like recycled, and I don't know. It's interesting. I'm maybe I'm reading more into it than I'm supposed to be, but that's kind of what I get out of it.
Interesting.
I don't entirely enjoy it. I just see it as more of like a commentary on our current state in music and American culture and stuff. And I think it's a mostly American genre. I don't know. I haven't really looked into where people are from, but it seems like they're people who spent most of quarantine in their bedrooms trying to make songs, and they didn't have any formal training, and that's what they came up with. And that in itself is a commentary on a historical event.
Yeah, I guess. It just depends on the way you look at it. Because I kind of look at that and go, like, holy crap. Like, that's just, like, the empowerment. Like, you know, had nothing, made something.
Yeah, definitely.
Isn't that supposed to, that's theoretically supposed to be, like, the, you know, the story, right?
Yeah.
So it's like,
I
mean, the song you make's better than the one you don't, whether it's, like, really good or not. I feel like I'm really trying to like preach this stuff to myself, so I actually,
yeah.
put the work in.
Yeah, I've my approach to music is, I'm in some ways I don't stray too far from what I understand. When it comes to sonics and all that, like I'm very exploratory, but when it comes to like writing style and that kind of thing, I have a certain formula. And when I was learning music, it was all math to me, so I ended up learning how to take concepts and apply them to my writing rather than explore the writing process and then try to make the concepts fit. It was always like I took, if I know I want to write a melody, I know I could find chords that go below it, but I got stuck a lot in my writing where there was a time in my life, even after high school, and this would have been like even in the last 6 years, where I was stuck on 4 chords per key. And I wouldn't go to the 2 or the 3 or the diminished for anything or add extensions. Like I didn't understand that. And it's only even until recently that I came to understand that playing a G7 chord, but instead putting the 7 in the bass is an entirely different chord.
Mm-hmm.
And it has an entirely different feel. There's certain things that until I learned how to do it, I couldn't do it for some reason. I'd be too afraid to stray, or I would think it's wrong because I didn't stray. So like you mentioned earlier, like you're kind of trying to break some of those concepts for yourself with recording. And I feel like I'm trying to do the same thing with writing.
Which really is cool because, like, I mean, like, as much as I like, we'll just say a good pop song and shit, something that's super just like, I don't know, we'll just say formulaic for lack of a better term. It's like I also really like super progressive stuff that's like almost hard to even like. What was the word? Right, accessible. Like it's almost inaccessible.
Yeah.
It's so like challenging in some aspects where it's like one's like not at all and one's like too much. So it's like I like I like the rules a lot,
Yeah.
but I also really like seeing people just throw them away entirely.
Me too. Something refreshing about it.
Yeah.
Might be another reason why I like hyperpop. I mean, they don't follow many rules. There's a lot of theory though. Like some of the better writers in the genre are really good at modulating because they also take a lot of cues from video game music. I mean, if you remember Super Mario Bros. And how a lot like they would modulate keys in the middle of a song, or a real popular soundtrack is the Legend of Zelda's soundtrack. They modulate constantly in those soundtracks to give it this very epic feeling. And I've seen that style of writing with these like chromaticisms and stuff being applied. And the other thing that's interesting is usually, and this is a really interesting thing, there's some female writers that don't have any other instruments other than like a really heavy drum machine of some kind, usually crushed to shit, and then like a bass that's kind of like subby saw, like with a little saw in there.
Yep.
And then the only thing that's providing melody is their voice.
Yeah.
Which is like standard for pop, but like the way they do it, it's like they chord the voice or they do all this stuff to make it like feel thicker, or they'll like route different instruments in ways where like it builds an atmosphere, but like that's not, there's no like tonal center to it, so they can like work around it. It's not always the most pleasing to listen to, I'll be honest, but it is something notable in terms of like the progression of what, like, why are people writing music like this?
Right.
It's like this, it just seems like this generation's rebellion in terms of music.
Yeah.
I mean, us older guys, when we were in our rebellious phase, it was all punk rock and like pop, and then that led into a more mature version of that, which was like the, what would you say, the alternative rock, not alternative rock, like the, I guess they called it alternative rock, but it was kind of like the progressive. I'm thinking of like Amberland style, like that. It seemed like punk became more like darker, I guess, as like it got closer to 2010ish, and then all the way up um a lot of the more like bright sounding songs kind of went away, I think, during that time, it seemed. And the thing that took its place was more well, at some point folk rock became the most popular thing.
Well, you just mentioned like you think you just said like 2010 or something. I mean, that's like peak folk rock
Yeah.
time frame, right? Like I remember
Yeah.
it being coming up big around then.
Yeah.
Like to the point where like almost everybody was trying to do it. Like, dude, there was
Oh, yeah.
pallet wood everywhere, dude.
And banjos.
Holy shit! Hey, I'll tell you what though. I was hearing a bunch of have you ever played banjo?
Yeah.
Do you know how to play it?
I know how to play it enough to make something happen, but nothing.
That's
I wouldn't say I'm really good at it. And I don't know, does Zach know how to fix banjos? Because I actually got 3 of them here.
What?
Have I never told you
I have
this?
one banjo, and you have 3?
You want one?
Kind of.
I bought my first
I
one.
legitimately do kind of want to learn to play a banjo.
They're really cool. I mean,
it's such a neat sound, and here's the reason I want to learn how. Because I like all types of like music that use it. Like I don't think I've ever heard music that had a banjo in it that I didn't like. That's just like a true statement. There's just something about it.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking everything from like straight up bluegrassy stuff, which I'm pretty into, as much as like think I don't even know what you'd call it, like, but like think like Far Cry 5 soundtrack.
Oh, yeah.
And stuff, you know, like that's all like kind of just like big pad and like reverbed out guitar soundscapes.
Yeah.
With like the thing that's clean picked in front of everything is like, you know,
banjo.
a banjo.
Yeah. Huh.
Or something. It's just a very like specific kind of sound, and it just sounds. What's the word I'm looking for? Like it sounds more organic than certain other instruments, and I don't know why.
It's very round, like a very like almost sharp round, like it's very, like the waveform I see. It's got a pinch point in the center of a round.
Yeah, and like it has what I would say is like a
resonant,
like a variable transient kind of resonance to it. Like when you really dig into it, it like rings, like it becomes very round.
Oh yeah.
But there's like that pluck part of it too that's also like very sharp. So
yeah,
I don't know. It's just weird. There's a lot of range it seems you can get out
after
of
the stream. I'll show you what I got. I think we can dig them out. I've collected quite a few over the years. Nolan gave me one. I bought one originally, and then I think there was one that is Ashley's brother's, that was here.
Yeah, they're sweet, man.
Yeah, I'll pull that stuff out. I think, I would, you know what, you mentioning that makes me wonder what that would sound like through this effects chain. I've never thought of like banjos and a reverb. That's the thing I'm mostly wanting to hear. I want to hear what it sounds like. I want to hear what it sounds like spaced out. That would be cool to me. Just like real, like I want all that sharpness and stuff, all the things that have like those higher frequency transients and stuff. I want to suck those out a little bit and just hear what the bottom end of a banjo sounds like with a bunch of reverb. I bet it sounds really spooky.
It would. That'd be something you'd have to do in headphones, though, you know?
Yeah, especially if it's like...
That's something you'd have to mic.
Yeah, you have to mic those. Like, how are you going to capture that snare on it? The snare head.
Yeah.
You need to mic it. I mean,
I'm sure somebody has like a pickup system for them, but in all reality, it's probably more of a mic than anything.
Yeah.
Like you know Zoe. Zoe had that guitar that was a Martin that had actually like a dual. It had a piezo in it, so the standard kind of like acoustic pickup that they put in the bridge, and then or below the bridge, and then it also had like a little mic in there too. So like you had your choice on the, you know, like a acoustic guitar that has electronics in it. Usually there's like a little pocket box, you know, up top or something where you can have some controls or a tuner or whatever. Yeah. And up there it basically had like a think a blend, right? Like all the way left is all piezo, all the way right is all mic, and or you could blend the two together, and the richness that you could get out of a mic is like like those blended together to me sounded as good as like a reasonable mic in front of it in the right position, and the mics on the inside aren't moving.
Oh,
So
okay.
like, someone can be like, not paying much attention
Yeah,
to how
move
they're
away from the
oriented or any of
microphone.
that, and you don't have to
Yeah,
worry about what's happening to the phase
that's
or any of that.
funny. That's
So
good. Like that's like what
yeah, so I'm
sound
just
man's dream.
so yeah, it just seemed like maybe that's a thing that people are doing now. Now that things like that are pretty miniaturized, maybe there's like a good
That's true. I mean, why wouldn't they have an
way to do
electric banjo? How do they
banjos.
do
But
banjos in a live setting? Because they're always in live settings. Like, do they just mic them up, or do they actually have an electric pickup system? I mean,
to be honest, I don't know.
yeah. We'll have to
I've
maybe
never worked a
research that.
show that had a banjo. So.
Actually, I need to. When I put those banjos away, I should have loosened the strings on them. I think they're. I'll have to look at them. I don't think
stretched out.
I didn't. I know they're not damaged or anything. I just think that they're like really the action on those things are really screwed up right now because I haven't played them in a long time. They've just been sitting in a bag.
Right.
I got into banjo around the time I was into harmonicas because it was 2012 and folk was still popular.
Yeah, man. You got to try to ride that wave.
Yeah, I think so yeah,
I'll try to do it.
The folk rock thing came in, and what was so weird about that is there wasn't much rebellion in the folk rock sound. Like there was like a period of time when there wasn't like, and like what people consider rock, it wasn't very rebellious like as traditional rock would be, like anything you'd consider.
Yeah, a lot of that stuff was like really honestly more alternative than anything.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways.
It broke. I feel like it broke a little mainstream though. Like what?
Yeah, definitely. Some
of
it had mainstream appeal. I just mean like the structures and the way they were writing stuff was not like a super. Like it didn't sound like rock and roll. It didn't really sound like country.
Mm-mm.
It wasn't really bluegrassy. It was
always
kind of its own thing.
It
almost sounded
deep.
like I always called it like movie trailer rock.
Yeah.
It's like I don't know.
Yeah, like Mumford and Sons comes to mind. The Lumineers. What other bands were there? But it just seemed like most of the 2010s. It seemed like the music was pretty. I don't want to sound pretentious when I say this, but it seemed so intelligent. Like it seemed like more thought out than a lot of other like mainstream genres before that in terms of like the rock stuff. I didn't hear a lot of music coming out during that time that was like, I mean, think of bands that were still popular throughout the 2010s. There were the Killers, like they still were putting out records. Coldplay was still putting out records.
They still put out
and records. They still put out records. But all these bands that were like top, they didn't really have a message of like rebellion in them for so much as like I remember like the 90s did. Like in grunge it was pretty rebellious, and then in the 80s it was like all about like sex and drugs and like like sex appeal and stuff. And then like the 70s it was like I guess like 60s 70s like hippie culture was big. That was like the rebellion. It seemed like the 2010s, like our generation's like rebellion was so tame. I don't know. Is there another genre I'm not thinking of that was like hitting more of the like I don't give a hell about what the last. I just felt like our
I thought honestly. Oh boy, this is getting into something hot in a certain sense, but
yeah,
I believe that like if you look around at like where things are at in general in this country, I feel like it's pretty clear that based on how divided people are, people just don't have very much exposure straight up to people who aren't like them. And we've talked about this a bunch.
Yeah.
But like the idea is that like I remember hip hop being like the big thing that like that's the shit that like parents were mad about.
Yeah.
And like so that the battle for all that was like, think like what we should be putting in that box is things like Eminem. Right?
Yeah.
Like they were mad about, explicit hip hop. Like rock was basically getting a free pass in that time.
That's true.
because they were so worked up about like, you know, like all this obscenity invading our homes, and like made huge deals about it, like in you know, into the from the early 2000s into like that time period.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
you're right.
I feel like that's when like everybody was, I don't know, like that it was more rebellious for you to be listening to, like I said, like, I don't know, just like that sort of music. Or I guess maybe you could be into like really, really like, I guess there's the other side of things. It's like, you know, Slipknot, Mushroom Head,
Yeah, I
like
was
that
thinking
kind
of
of
those
stuff,
a
right?
little bit too.
Like that side of things. But
Even that, like,
that's a whole nother
yeah,
subculture though. Like
yeah,
I'm not really trying to like put those all in the same circle or whatever,
right.
because it isn't really quite like that. But
The thing is, like, I was just thinking, and maybe it's just my musical experience. There's a lot more music available in the 2010s than ever before, because digital, just bedroom music was being made. Like, digital music was like so much easier to get.
by the tens, it was like one of those things. There's like iTunes was a thing
Yeah,
that just had everything.
everyone wasn't forced to listen to the same thing always, and so there was less of. Honestly, I think the 2010s, maybe the reason why there wasn't such a like flashiness to like your style of music is because you had nothing to prove. All the people you were playing, you were appealing to anyway.
That's fair. Yeah, like your fans followers are like already siloed and connected with your content. So like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, good point.
And you weren't competing for like time on the radio anymore. You were just, I mean,
I guess that is kind of, we could just say the post-download era, though I say that knowing that people are still like stealing and, you know, pirating all sorts of content, music included. So it's not like it just stopped
yeah,
after some lawsuits happened, but at the same time, like there was a time when it was kind of just the Wild West, and there wasn't
yeah.
like any laws or anything about any of it. I think like that's like the LimeWire days or Napster,
Oh,
people
yeah.
might remember.
I definitely remember LimeWire. Yeah, so I just think everyone got allocated into their own circles, and I think also around that time, like late 2000s, a lot of that MySpace genre of music came out where it wasn't really a style of music, more so like just people found musicians on MySpace and they were all kind of bedroom producers, and they post their own stuff on their page. And that's when I think people were allowed to be more risky and still get exposure. I'm thinking about all this stuff because I'm thinking what led up to hyperpop, right? Like, I know this isn't, I'm just fixated on this subject, but I think the reason why hyperpop exists you can direct that back to like MySpace. Like, people were risk takers. Like, people were taking like more risk. Like, I think of Hello Goodbye's early records. Like, that stuff was gnarly sounding. Like, it would never be played on the radio except for Here in Your Arms, which was like actually produced by someone other than the dude who writes for the band. It was like the only one I think on there that actually sounds radio ready. All the other ones sound like he just recorded it into his computer and didn't do anything but EQ and didn't make, it's just interesting. I just find the whole thing fascinating. Nowadays people can take more risks because there's less to lose. You're not trying to get that precious 5 minutes, 4 minutes of airtime on the radio, or trying to make a 2-minute song for airtime. What you're trying to do now is just put out as much crap as you possibly can and hope something sticks. So there's a lot more risk taking because it's like, well, I don't know what's going to stick.
Or you're just literally looking to like express something, or like
yeah, and
I don't
there's
know,
no
like
there's
get
no
your idea
gatekeeping.
out, and you learn the medium is like not super inaccessible. Like we were just talking about that on Sunday, right? Like like you can get a DAW for $49. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, you could buy a Reaper for like no money and
Yeah.
like get results. Like it'll do what Logic can do. It just doesn't come with all the content, you know?
Right.
So,
Right.
but it's like if if like what you're talking about, where if you're sitting there and you're in a bedroom with your $50 interface and your $50 mic and your $50 Reaper, you've got literally no skin in the game at all,
Yeah.
and there's nothing stopping you from making anything you want with those pieces.
Yeah. It's true.
But guess what? You don't have, that vintage, whatever Wurlitzer,
No.
plug-in pack, like none of that stuff. And so it's just like,
You just
what can you record?
You grab what you can.
Yeah, and you just do it.
And that minimalist approach has always fascinated me. What can I do with nothing? That's why I like that tracker so much, is because I get 8 channels. I usually
what I'm
only
saying
use
is
4.
I don't think people in that position are looking into it going, I have nothing. What can I do with that? I think they're honestly just stoked to have what they have, and are just happy to have a way to get their idea out.
Definitely.
And I don't think they're concerned with like, was anything proper, correct, or whatever. It's just like, it served the idea good enough. Like,
Yeah.
and that's cool because you get to hear what somebody's idea at that stage or in that point to make that kind of music, like that's what they wanted, and that's what they heard, and that's what they recorded, and that's cool.
I see what you're saying.
Like
yeah.
Like, it's not trying to be pretentious. It's not this thing where, if you're going to have a radio single, like, you're going to have to work with this producer, and so-and-so is going to have to make your beat.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it better have DJ Khaled.
Have you been keeping up with all the Taylor Swift stuff? How she's
Uh-uh.
re-releasing her albums and doing, like, basically her way? That's kind of her own thing. Like, she was in all these legal battles over her masters, right? Like, she wanted her own stuff.
Never sell your masters, kids.
Never sell them. But she's like, well, I still own the songs, technically. Like, I wrote them. They're mine. So she just re-record them. And whoever she's recording them with, whether it's herself or some other people, they're like, yeah, they're all yours. You get to keep the masters.
No, she has to. That's how it works. So basically, you have 2 licenses. You have like the mechanical license and then like the performance license.
Yeah.
And whoever wrote the song, like, can grant those.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're the writer, you just grant yourself permission to perform your own song.
Yeah.
And then those recordings now belong to whoever you say they belong to.
Yeah.
Exactly. You just didn't own
their
the
recording
output product of whatever you did for Capitol or BMG or whoever it was.
So I think that what's funny is they do, like, both versions sound very similar.
I'm sure.
And I think that's hilarious because it's like, you think I just, like, I don't know much about it other than the version sounds similar. I just think it's really fun. It's like, you thought you were super special because you recorded my stuff, right? Anyone can record my stuff. Like, I'm the talent here. I think that's hilarious.
Right. No.
To me.
It was the song that was good, not who you paid to set the mics up. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, it's so funny to me, and kind of fades into our whole thing with, like, anyone who works with us. Like, we don't want to own their shit. We just want the opportunity to work with people. Right?
Yeah, no, that's literally it.
So, and I feel like that's like that's gonna have to be the new way of doing things, because artists deserve to have ownership of their art. Like, it's not right to, like, you can pay me for my time. I mean, that's valuable to me, and it could be valuable to you, and I think there's proper compensation there, but there's no reason I should hold you in some kind of limbo over your material and get constantly paid.
I think that, like, being willing to maybe even, like, overextend when giving credit to people is a necessary thing too. Like, I'm very at a point where it's like, look, like, while I want to retain ownership of all my stuff, at the same time, I would be pretty open-handed about licensing it to anybody who wanted to use it for something, provided it's not, like, crazy against, like, what I believe in or something. That'd just be weird to me, right?
Yeah.
But, like, aside from that, right? It's like, what would be the thing? Like, I don't know. And then on top of that, if I was working with other people, it's like, I don't care if they just help me write a line. Like, it's like, do you want a writing credit on this? Like, I you know what I mean?
Well, that one time we were who was it? Well, like, a few weeks ago, I always talk about this, but Katie was in the studio, and all those songs we wrote, I'm like, man, like, if anything happens to those, like, I'll honestly tell you that with you just being here, I want to credit you for that, because your energy in the room was, like, inspiring a lot of this work.
Yeah.
Like I kind of think of it in terms of that, and that's kind of like I think you told me this. Like that's used to be how they did it. But
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I just feel like being really liberal with giving away credit in a way that like it's like if we're trying to be artists and have some sort of livelihood in this, it's like we have to be thinking about longevity
and community
and community
yeah.
around that as well. Like if I'm gonna work on this thing with somebody, it's like I want them to get credit because whether I'm here or not, like they should still be able to reap the benefits of having put their work into that thing. Like
Yeah.
that's important to me.
Well, I think with that we'll call it. I think I can't.
I gotta go anyway.
Yeah, this is
be
session
honest,
like
so-
27. You can start packing up, and I'll
So-
just end the stream.
All right.
This might be 26. This might be 27. I know the number will be right on the video. Actually, I don't know if it will be right, but let's just assume it's 26, 27. Let's just say it's one of those. Okay, I'm not really sure.
Look, it's a session. It's newer than the one we did last
Just
week.
add one.
And it's older than the one we're gonna do next week. So that's all I can say.
So freaking smart. Math. So yeah, be sure to check us out on our other stream on Sundays, Vibe Unit. Look up our YouTube channel. Subscribe and like our stuff. It doesn't help us because we're not in any program, but we'd like to be. We'd like to start working with sponsors and all that fun stuff. I mean, I'm not proud to,
It's no secret.
It's
That's
kind of
where, that's the dream, right? So
we do really appreciate those of you who checked us out. This whole thing is really fun, and we enjoy doing it Sunday and this. Last Sunday's stream was really cool. We had a new friend of ours in the studio. He's a guitar guru, if you will, and he is very good at setting up guitars. In fact, John's guitar today was just freshly set up.
Just yesterday, matter of fact.
And you may see him. In fact, the plan is you're going to see him a lot more often. And as time goes on, I'll let you guys get to know him. He'll do his own thing, and sure, he'll say his own words. I don't need to say anything other than that.
Cool.
You got anything, John? You want to say before you go?
I mean, you kind of hit it all, right?
Cool.
The usual stuff: Sundays, Vibe Unit, Skylight Huddle Tuesdays. So
And send an email over to skylighthuddle@gmail.com if you have any questions or if you want to collab in any kind of way. Even if you're not like personally acquainted with me, it may be fun if you do another stream just to kind of get some ideas of some things we could do better, or maybe just you want to talk. We can also do like broadcast, or we can do what do you call it? We could do like a interview thing with the streams.
teleconferencing.
Yeah, some teleconferencing, whatever. That sounds so 90s. I really enjoy talking about music, and I really enjoyed our conversation today, John. So I'll end it
Cool.
there.
Well, it was a good week. We'll see you next time.
See you later. Did it really just crash? Oh, no, it's still going.